Good Sunday to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our Hurricane Outlook and discussion for December 10th, 2023. Had to post today instead of yesterday, Saturday, which is our usual schedule for these off-season discussions because I was busy, but I'm here at least today with it. So let's get right on with it. As you can see by the background, yes, if you're wondering, that is indeed a precipitation forecast. And that is indeed one for next year, and it does look very active, but we'll go over that very shortly. A lot to get to today. First, let's start off though with a view of the satellite image of the Atlantic, and you notice one thing, and we'll actually talk about this a little bit more, but this is a weather system that brought quite a bit of severe weather to portions of the South yesterday. There was many deadly tornadoes, and, as well as numerous deaths reported. And now today that's moving along to the East Coast, and for my area, that's going to mean gusty winds and heavy rain. So if you're in the Northeast, especially right around the tri-state New York metropolitan area, all I'm going to say is stay indoors, especially this evening. It's going to be very rainy. Heavy rain up to 2 to 4 inches possible, and gusty winds too. I saw some forecasts up to 60-mile-per-hour gusts in the Northeast. So if you're doing anything today, make sure to do it early, because tonight and into early tomorrow morning it will be an absolute mess of weather. And then if we look, of course, across the rest of the Atlantic, you also see strong upper level winds, typical wind shear. This is probably another extratropical system moving off to the northeast, and probably is going to bring rain or something like that to the UK as well. And hey, some precipitation down here in the deep tropics as well. Maybe is it a tropical wave? I don't know, but maybe does look to be one. Obviously, not will not develop though. Very anemic convection, and obviously very strong upper level winds. And it's besides not the time of year anymore for that to happen. Anyways, let's take a look now though at a look at the NOAA Coral Reef Watch sea surface temperature anomalies. And what do you notice? Typical things as we've been watching for the last few weeks. Very warm SST profile along the equatorial Pacific. Very typical, obviously, of El Nino, since we're in El Nino, and a very strong one at that too. But the Atlantic too, also very warm, and I'll go more in depth on how warm it is in the Atlantic in just a moment. But it is definitely warm, and it's definitely taking its time to really cool down. It's not in a hurry at all to cool back down towards more normal levels, and this will really mean a lot of things, especially for next season if this does persist and hold. And we'll also take a look at climate models too. I actually got quite a bit of those climate models going, including the precipitation forecast you saw in the thumbnail. That is actually by Ben Knoll. He did a precipitation forecast of the NMME model, which is one of the climate models we look at. Well, it's more kind of like a climate ensemble model, taking the average of a bunch of different models, but still, it is a model um, output nonetheless for us to look at, and we'll take a look at that in just a short moment. But first, I do want to go over Nino 3.4 sea surface temperature anomalies. When we're in a strong El Nino, I'm saying it, we're holding strong at 2 degrees Celsius above normal with this Nino 3.4. This is the area of the Pacific where we watch more specifically for the value of ENSO, the strength of ENSO. It's in the Nino 3.4 region. So if you're wondering why we're looking at Nino 3.4, that's where the area of interest usually is for watching El Nino and La Nina. And we're strong, 2 degrees Celsius above normal. But of course, this will have to persist for a while. It is 3 tri-monthly periods that we typically look at to see El Nino persist for a certain value of El Nino to persist in order for it to be considered a specific strength. So in this case, if we have 3 tri-monthly periods, so tri-monthly period meaning basically, for instance, August, September, October, if we have 3 of those in a row, so that, let's say in this instance, would be like maybe September, October, November, December, or November, December, January. if those tri-monthly periods all have values above 2 degrees Celsius or so, then that's when we'll consider this. That's when the CPC will officially consider this a super El Nino. And by the way, those tri-monthly values I gave you are not the ones that we're looking at. Probably not. I'm just giving you an example, but you get what I'm saying. We need 3 tri-monthly values in order for this to be considered an El Nino and super El Nino, which that meaning the strength of an El Nino above 2 degrees Celsius. And right now we've only had these values persist since mid-November. So if this holds for another month or two or so, or we do see this averaged out enough over a course of 3 tri-monthly periods, then we'll maybe get this to super El Nino strength, but probably this is only something more shorter term, and we'll probably see weakening of this very soon. But in terms of the Atlantic MDR, another area that we really need to watch very closely, especially towards next season, we're very warm there. We're at 1 degree Celsius above normal now. We did dip below that for a short period of time last month and into early this month, but now we're back at 1 degree Celsius above normal, and we've basically been there for the entire year, especially since October when we were at 1.4, 1.3 degrees Celsius above normal. We're not at that level now, but still 1 degree Celsius above normal averaged out in the entire Atlantic MDR. That is quite significant, to say the least, and especially if this does persist into next season, this will be something very, very interesting we got to watch for, because especially if we do indeed transition out of El Nino, like most climate models are showing, and of course I will show those climate models very soon. If we have that and these values of 1 degree Celsius persist, things really could get quite interesting. I'll go, of course, into depth a little more with that shortly. But first, the SOI dashboard. If you remember this, I did talk about this a lot throughout the off-season last year, and we will talk about it again this year. This is one of the other main factors that we typically look at when it comes to determining, this is one of the main things that we look at when we're looking at El Nino strength, the SOI. By the way, meaning Southern Oscillation Index. It even says it right here. This is the Southern Oscillation Index, and this basically measures the pressure patterns between Darwin, which is of course in Australia, and Tahiti, which is somewhere in the middle of the Pacific. And that is significant because the pressure differences between those two areas determines how the trade winds along the Pacific act, and in turn that helps with determining the strength of an ENSO pattern, because this is all connected. This is oceanic to atmospheric. They're all connected, so they all have correlation with each other. And right now, as of the average for the SOI for the last 30 days, we're in negative territory, and in the last 90 days we're also in negative territory, even stronger at -8. And remember, one thing to always keep in mind, if you've been watching me, you know this, but if you've not been watching me before, but you're now watching me now, one rule of thumb to always take into consideration: -7 or +7, either side, is a determination for a specific ENSO event if we're atmospherically there per the SOI. So for instance, let's say once we reach +7, that means atmospherically we're in line with a La Nina. If we're at or below -7, which is where we basically are right now, that means we're atmospherically in line with the El Nino. And rightfully so, because we have values, at least over the last 90 days, averaging out still below -7, even below -8. And we can even see that here on this graph here. This is the recent preliminary SOI values, and you notice we've been below -7 for quite some time, since November, obviously because we're in El Nino. But I do want to mention that we also are seeing slowly an uptrend in these values, going less and less negative. So that does mean the atmosphere is slowly beginning to change, and especially as we head towards next season, we'll probably see these values continue to go up even more, and probably that's when we'll begin to see the leveling out and then the downfall of El Nino. But as of right now, of course, just want to reiterate it. Latest CPC values, of course, we looked at the values of the daily values that are recorded, which is this map. These are the daily values, but this is the weekly average value directly from the CPC. So I guess this could be a little more credible, at least when it comes to determining what the CPC puts on its ENSO values. But right now, once again, still strong. Still strong El Nino. We're at 2 degrees Celsius above normal, so we're very much in a very strong El Nino. And maybe even getting around Super El Nino territory as well. But what does it look like from this point onward into the future? And this is one of the models we'll look at, and we'll also revisit this, I guess, every month or so. How about we do that? I take a screenshot, and then we could revisit this next month and compare this to how the model runs are around this time next month, and see how much they change. Just a little bit of a nice comparison that we could do, just to see, of course, how things do change, because it's only December right now, and we still have so much time till we get to hurricane season. But bottom line, interestingly enough, the CFS V2, that's what this model is, has from this point onward, a leveling out and then a decline getting more rapid towards as we approach early summer next year. And then by July, look at this. Most of the models, especially the most recent models, this is something to point out, and probably very important too. The blue lines, of course, are the ones that we should watch out for. These are the more latest runs of the CFS. These are the more latest values that the CFS V2 has. And very interestingly, look at this. The latest values, all the blue lines here, they're all, by the time we get to July, at or below negative 0.5 degrees Celsius below normal in the Nino 3.4 region, and that is the threshold for La Nina. And by July, they're all at or even already into La Nina territory. So this model really does get very aggressive with a rapid transition from where we are, strong El Nino right now, rapidly into a La Nina or cool neutral or cool ENSO of some sort by the time we get into next season. And the CFS is not alone too. Even I have the CANSIPs pulled up. This is on the December run, which came out several days ago at the beginning of December. And notice that too. This is the same time frame, July 2024. And even then, look at these colder anomalies beginning to show up along the equatorial Pacific. And if we want to turn our attention to the Atlantic too, look at that. Very, very warm Atlantic and very, very cold. Well, not very, very cold, but getting colder Pacific. And what does that yield to? Well, Ben Knoll, this is what he tweeted, and literally exactly what he says. Oh my. This is what the NMME shows for NMME. I'm getting the words mixed up, but you get the point. This is the NMME guidance for next hurricane season in the Atlantic. And will you just look at that? Look at that. All these very dark green anomalies represents a lot of precipitation in the Atlantic. And if you were to take a look at all these factors that the models have, including the very rapid transition that the CFS and even the CANSIP seems to show, and of course, if we do see the Atlantic remain persistent in its warmth, this would make sense. He says, that's what I said out loud when I saw the new NMME guidance for the next season in the Atlantic, and it makes sense. We see very warm Atlantic persist, especially if it's to the degree that we're in right now, and transition towards cool neutral or even La Nina like a lot of these models have. This is the result that we would see from the models. Very aggressive and even very, very favorable pattern in store for next year. And I like to really, and I really will repeat this a lot. It really is this year that just look at how active this year was, even with the 1 degree Celsius above normal in the very strong El Nino that we are in fact seeing this year. We still had a very active season this past year, even though we were in an El Nino with an Atlantic as warm as it is right now. And the fact that all the models basically point to that lasting into next season and us transitioning, perhaps indeed, like the models are showing, I'm not making this up, the models are indeed showing we could potentially be getting towards La Nina territory by the time we get to the early part of next season. Really not unexpected that we're seeing the kind of guidance that we're seeing right now, and definitely something to watch very closely right now. Of course, obviously, though, it's only December, so we still have a lot of time from now till next season. I do want to talk about, though, and I did mention this earlier, a lot of severe weather going on, especially in the eastern part of the United States. You see all these greens. This is the weather.gov. This is the National Weather Service homepage. All of these are flood watches, and this is because we have a big system moving across towards the east, and that's going to bring a lot of heavy rain and high winds too. And I'll even zoom in on some areas. I'll go to my area, New York, and you see this here, high wind warnings, and this is basically a general summary of how the whole entire Northeast is basically looking like today and into tomorrow. Flood watch in effect because there might be a lot of heavy rain too. I'll go to that first. This is for New York. Anywhere between 2 to 4 inches of rain is likely. And of course, and even through southern Connecticut, 3 to 5 inches, and even Long Island too, and southern Connecticut, 3 to 5 inches with local amounts up to 6. And that is a lot of rain. And pair that too with the high wind warning that we have, winds sustained 25 to 35 mile per hour with gusts up to 60 miles an hour. And that's strong tropical storm force gusts. Those are strong tropical storm force gusts, well into tropical storm force territory. So combine that with heavy rain and strong winds, we're basically getting what it would be like in a tropical system. But of course, it is not an actual tropical system. It's only a winter extratropical kind of big storm system moving across the East Coast. So kind of already putting into your mind there, we don't need a big hurricane in order to get big weather effects like heavy rain and strong winds. We don't need a big hurricane, and we don't need a strong one too. And in this case, we don't even need a hurricane at all. So that is definitely very important to keep in mind, especially when it comes to hurricanes and weather in general. And really quickly, just want to mention again, Weather Prediction Center, this is their kind of outlook. And you notice, too, moderate chance for excessive rainfall, and that stretches along the I-95 corridor in the Northeast. So it's going to be widespread, too, that we're seeing a lot of heavy rain as well, gusty winds. Once again, if you have anything that you want to do today, I suggest that you do it now, as especially the weather probably will deteriorate and get worse towards the evening, and it'll probably be a complete mess along the East Coast, especially the Northeast tomorrow morning. So brace for that. Stay inside as well. And when it comes to the idea of hurricane season, definitely got to watch it too. And always something to keep in mind. A lot of these model guidances will change, especially as time does move on. Especially as right now we're still very much in improvement phase with these climate models, these far range climate models, in terms of predicting general climate patterns. They're not perfect. So especially right now, still, it's important to keep in mind that things could change, and we could very well be talking about something completely different by the time we get to April of next year. But one thing to keep in mind, these models are indeed getting better at predicting long-range climate patterns. So the fact that we do see all this, it should still be taken into consideration, even though we are as far out as we are right now. And it's certainly something we'll definitely watch for next season. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up though. If you are, of course, watching in the Northeast, if you're watching anywhere that's going to get any bad weather today, stay safe, stay dry. And of course, for the rest of you, stay safe as well. Always, everybody stay safe, especially at the time we're living in right now. Peace, love, and kindness to all. If you liked what you saw today, I encourage you like, comment, subscribe, share with family and friends, get the word out. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll see you back next Saturday.